Today we are in a 2001 BMW Z3 3-liter. Now this is the biggest motor available in this car other than the M Roadster or M Coupe. This is also a Z3 Roadster, which means the top comes off. It's staying on now because the weather is a little uncertain. So from the factory, this car supposedly came with 225 horsepower and 214 pound-feet of torque. Now one of a couple things is true. That's true, and my butt dyno is off. Or BMW was sandbagging a little bit, because this certainly feels much quicker. Or this car has had things done to it that I'm unaware of, because as it'll hopefully translate to camera, this car gives quite a shove. Now this one, while not an M car, does have the M Sport package. So with that you get sport suspension, limited slip differential, better steering wheel, and a few M badges in places. This one also has a ZHP shift knob, which if you ask any BMW person is pretty much the best shift knob you're going to find for this application. Overall, I really like the car. I'm not much of a convertible guy, and a coupe would be nicer, but there is quite a premium on the Z3 coupes. The chassis feels reasonably stiff, although there is some wobble there. This car is also based on the E36 3 Series chassis, so some would say it's not a proper ground-up sports car. But I think due to the raw analog nature of the car, it feels more sports car than a lot of current, inverted quotations, sports cars. This one's been fitted with 15, yes, I said 15-inch steel wheels from a Euro E36 320i Touring. And I really like what it does for the look. They've been painted to match the vinyl wrap job around the side mirrors and the windshield trim. I think it gives it a nice little British flair. So the question is, should you consider one of these if you are the type of person who might be looking at an MR2, a Miata, or any other small, nimble sports car? I believe you should, because from the get-go you're starting with a much more solid feeling, albeit heavier, platform than the aforementioned Japanese contestants. But having 3 liters, or up to 3 liters, or an M, even 3.2 liters of displacement to play with, gives you more car to grow into, I believe. And it's hard to argue with that BMW straight 6 noise. Now I've owned E36s in the past, and I always heard people talk about, well, you need to get the Z3 steering rack, And after driving a Z3, I totally get what people were saying, because to me, of this era of BMW, let's say late 90s, early 2000s, for me, this is the best one. It feels the best in hand. It's the most communicative. It tells you exactly what the car is doing, and you're never really caught by surprise. And coupled with this 3-spoke M steering wheel, I think it's the perfect pairing. This also comes from an era of BMW that I rather miss, when things were a lot more simple. Now I feel like you can pick any number 1 through 10 on a dartboard and you'll end up with a BMW model that has 5 variants. And it's a little much. And on a tight, twisty road, this 230-ish horsepower is really the perfect amount of power you can really exploit and not scare yourself. I mean, don't get me wrong, you could still get into trouble if you are a complete idiot, but it's really not going to hurt you. I think this car comes from an era where technology was at a really good place, where we could get decent power out of engines, have decent brakes, good chassis dynamics, good suspension, but without the myriad of computer systems that most current cars come with. If you'd like to turn traction control off in this car, it's one button. And once it's off, it's off. Now I don't know if you can see this in my rear, but I have a little red E30. A wild E30 has appeared. And now he's got a little Subaru 22B behind him. How brilliant is that? apologize for that brief interlude to play with the Hot Boy E30, but that leads me to a different point, which is there a better hobby, really, that you can just be out enjoying it, find some people and your fast friends, no pun intended? It's brilliant. Anyways, back to the Z. Now, is this car going to be a future classic? I think so, maybe. Especially in this spec or an M. I'm not sure about the 4-cylinder ones. I think they're a little underpowered. And at that stage, you may as well get a Miata if a 4-cylinder roadster is what you're after. But I do think as BMWs become bigger and more complicated, that people will want to remember when they were nimble, small, agile, uncomplicated, and pure. And I do believe this car is all those things. I think it's got pretty timeless styling with a proper 3-liter straight six up front. Yep, I think this is one to look out for, and they may have already hit their bottom price-wise. I also think they are becoming more rare, even though they did make them in quite large numbers, because I've witnessed kids, a lot of kids over the past few years, buying them and turning them into drift cars and gutting them and just beating them literally to death. So I think this could be a good one to look out for. If you see one cheap, snatch it up. And it's pretty safe money. I don't think they're not going to get any cheaper. Now, full disclosure, this one's for sale. It has done 87,000 miles. It has new tires, new brakes, and new shocks. And it feels tight as a drum. Doesn't miss a beat. It feels both vintage and contemporary simultaneously somehow, but it's still totally acceptable and comfortable from a passenger, wife or girlfriend, boyfriend, whatever, quality. I mean, depending on what you do for work, for a living, or where you live, it could totally be a daily driver as well. Now, if you all don't mind, I'm gonna go now because